In the heart of West Africa, a shadow moved in silence. No one knew his name. No one saw him coming. They say revolutions are loud, but this one began quietly, in the mind of a man who watched his country bleed while its leaders looked the other way. It was a September 20th, 2022 morning when the capital of Burkina Faso awoke to an unusual silence. A silence so heavy, it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. Then, the crack of gunfire, the rumble of military trucks, men in camouflage moving with precision. By sunset, the flag still waved above the capital, but the man in charge had changed. He was not a general, not a career politician. He was just 34 years old. His name? Ibrahim Traoré, who was not elected, but risen from the barracks, young enough to be mistaken for a student, and yet powerful enough to shake an entire continent. To some, the new Thomas Sankara. To others, a dangerous soldier with a taste for power. But here's what the headlines didn't tell you: the journey that shaped him, the hidden motives behind the coup, the promises, the power, the shadows. This is the untold story of Ibrahim Traoré. To understand Ibrahim Traoré, you must first understand the land he calls home, Burkina Faso, a country whose very name means the land of upright people, landlocked, surrounded by 6 nations, and yet fiercely proud of its identity. For centuries, this was a land of warriors, traders, and farmers. But in the late 19th century, the French arrived, folding it into their colonial empire. Independence came in 1960, but freedom did not come without its chains. Like many African nations, Burkina Faso remained economically tied to its former colonizer, its resources flowing outward while its people struggled. Over the decades, governments rose and fell, often not at the ballot box, but at the barrel of a gun. And in 1983, one man changed the narrative: Thomas Sankara, young, charismatic, and fearless. He spoke of self-reliance, women's rights, and rejecting foreign exploitation. But in 1987, Sankara was assassinated in a coup led by his former ally, Blaise Compaoré. For the next 27 years, Compaoré ruled until he himself was forced out by mass protests. It was into this history, this cycle of hope and betrayal, that Ibrahim Traoré was born. Bondokuy, a small, quiet town in western Burkina Faso, the kind of place where the days are measured by the rise and fall of the sun, and the seasons by the rain. Ibrahim was born here in 1988. His father was a farmer, his mother a homemaker. Life was not easy, but it was honest. From a young age, Ibrahim was different. While other boys might dream of leaving the village for the bright lights of the capital, Ibrahim spent hours listening to elders tell stories. Stories of heroes, of battles fought for dignity, of leaders who stood up against impossible odds. Teachers would later recall a boy who was sharp, disciplined, and endlessly curious. He asked why when others stayed silent. He wanted to know how things worked, why the country was poor, why the roads were broken, why so many young people had no future. He didn't know it yet, but the answers to those questions would shape his destiny. Burkina Faso was struggling. Poverty was everywhere, and in the north the threat of extremist violence was slowly creeping in. For young Ibrahim, these weren't just news stories. They were realities shaping his family, his neighbors, his future. By his early 20s, Ibrahim faced a choice: stay in Bondokuy, following the life of his parents. Then Ibrahim made a decision that would change his life forever. He joined the army. For many young men, the military in Burkina Faso has always been more than just a profession and was a path out of poverty, a steady paycheck. But for him, it was more than that. It was a duty. He trained hard, earned respect quickly, and was eventually assigned to the artillery unit. He served in missions against extremists in the north, He saw the front lines of Burkina Faso's growing crisis, attacks from extremist groups spilling in from Mali and Niger, villages burned, families displaced. In the army, he saw soldiers risking their lives with little support, outdated weapons, no food, and sometimes no clear plan at all. The frustration grew, not just in him, but in many soldiers. He began to question the leadership, not out loud, but deep inside. By 2022, Burkina Faso was on the brink. The government, led by Paul-Henri Damiba, himself a coup leader from earlier that year, was losing control. The violence is now getting worse. Attacks by armed groups were increasing, villages were being overrun, and ordinary citizens felt abandoned. In the barracks, whispers began. Soldiers talked late into the night about change, and slowly Ibrahim's name began to come up. Not as a loud agitator, but as someone who could lead. He wasn't a general. He wasn't from the top brass. He was a captain, young, unassuming, but trusted. On September 30th, 2022, the whispers became action. Shots echoed in the capital. Military vehicles rolled through the streets. The flag of Burkina Faso waved above armored trucks. Damiba was out. The people were told it was for their own security, for the survival of the nation. When Ibrahim Traoré appeared on television in his camouflage uniform, flanked by soldiers, the nation saw the face of its new leader for the first time. He spoke firmly, promising to restore security, to fight corruption, and to protect the sovereignty of Burkina Faso. Some saw hope. Others saw a dangerous precedent, a second coup in just 1 year. Being 34 years old, he was the youngest head of state in the world. As leader, Traoré faced enormous challenges. The extremists didn't vanish overnight. International pressure mounted, and running a country was far different from commanding a unit of soldiers. But Traoré struck a chord with many young Africans. He spoke against French influence, sought closer ties with other African nations, and emphasized self-reliance. He criticized foreign interference and emphasized that Burkina Faso's destiny should be decided by its own people. Yet, behind the speeches, questions remained. Was this a genuine revolution for the people, or simply another power struggle wrapped in patriotic words? Some say he is inspired by Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary leader assassinated in 1987. Others warn that charisma and military power can be a dangerous mix. Away from the cameras, Ibrahim is described as disciplined, reserved, and deeply focused. He keeps a tight circle of advisors. He rarely grants interviews. Some say this is caution, others say it is control. Is he the hero his supporters believe in, or just another soldier in Africa's long history of strongmen? Ibrahim Traoré is still in power. He is young, one of the youngest leaders in the world, and his future and that of Burkina Faso is uncertain. Will he be remembered as a hero who defended his people, or as another name in Africa's long list of military rulers? Only time will tell. But remember this, sometimes the most important chapters of a story are the ones we haven't read yet. And in the case of Ibrahim Traoré, the pen is still in his hand.